doing, folks? We are coming to you live from Hammond Castle in beautiful and historic Magnolia, Massachusetts. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Heather Atwood. How you doing, Heather?
Hi, Kory. I'm so good. So good. So fun to be here today.
Isn't this great?
Yeah, yeah.
And so we've done this like almost seasonally now for a couple of years. We have to make a return to the castle every October to find out what's going on.
I kind of missed the candles. We were in front of the candles one year.
I
think that was when Maureen did it also.
Yeah. And then we were in the dining area.
Yeah, right. That was the last time.
Were you part of that Halloween episode we did where Chelsea Berry performed, but then you and I also shared Halloween candy?
Yeah, I came in. I was still the food writer.
Did you bring anything today?
Well, it's pretty far from Halloween. We were much closer to Halloween.
Well, you get in the spirit
of it. We had costumes the last time.
Did we?
No, not the last time, but when we were in front of the fireplace.
We did too. We had a lot of candy, actually. It was a little embarrassing. But
I'm
anyway.
in the spirit,
yeah. So we're so happy to get back here. By the way, if you want to learn more about Hammond Castle, hammondcastle.org, you can find out about all their programming. We're going to go into detail about all the things going on here at the castle. And to join us right off the top is the Executive Director, Linda Harvey. How you doing, Linda?
Great, thank you. It's so exciting to have you here. We
Yeah.
love it. It's always wonderful to share the castle with everyone, and this is a wonderful way to do it. So.
Every time I'm here, I see a new room, a new space that I just gasp at. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Like the little courtyard up there, it's so pretty.
We've been working on the castle steadily. We wanted to improve it in any way that we could make that visitor experience better. And I'm about to celebrate my 4th year here.
Wow.
In November, it'll be an anniversary of 4 years, and I don't know where it all went, except COVID kind of gobbled up a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Like 4 years feels like 8, right?
But it's been wonderful and exciting, and so many new programs and new challenges, and trying to bring more of the castle's presence into the community, which has been a huge drive for us. We want everyone to know that we're here for them as well. And we're also including more educational programming and new exhibits and better lighting, and so we're trying to make it all a very pleasant visit for everyone, and then come out and say, wow, I didn't know this was here.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. We're that little hidden jewel on the North Shore that, and especially to Gloucester. So.
Oh, absolutely. We've always said one of the crown jewels of Cape Ann is Hammond Castle.
Well, I think that what Linda's doing is working, because truthfully, I've been here 3 times, and as I said, each time I see something more amazing. And this time it's this courtyard that has 15th century structures in it. That is just so beautiful.
It is.
And
it's
so
gorgeous.
unique for this area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one of our main projects this past year was to restore the clear story, the glass ceiling in there. And it was
in here.
Almost a 1.5-year project to get that completed. But now it's tight, and we're not leaking. And it was 90 years old and had served its purpose, and it needed to be replaced. So with that, you have to dress up the rest of the courtyard as well, so that it looks its very best. And we've been working with people that will be replanting it over this winter. So we'll have a whole new display of foliage and things for the coming spring.
Yeah.
And it's very much like the Gardner Museum.
Yes.
Not quite as high a ceiling, but it's that same beautiful feel, the natural light pouring down and gardens down below.
And I think Hammond wanted a piece of that. He was friends with the Gardners, and Elizabeth.
Envy.
Well, she was much his senior, but they really had a wonderful relationship. And he wanted a little piece of her gardens in his home. So that's why he did build his pool, and wanted to look like a reflecting pool, so that when he dove in from the archways above, everyone would gasp and think he was plunging to his death, which he wasn't, because it's an 8-foot pool.
He did that?
Yes,
he
did.
That's really funny.
He was quite a showman as well.
Yeah.
So, and he loved that practical joke on everyone. If you were here for dinner and you were staying in one of the guest rooms and you were late, heaven forbid you'd had a shower on your way over to dinner, because he would turn his weather system on and give you a little drenching.
Yeah, and as a kid, when I used to visit, we always called that the irrigation room, because we saw they would, the showers would come on to water all the plants in there.
No, he could create any atmosphere in there with his magic. Between the water and foggy night, you could do that as well, or starry night, and so he really was he was the inventor. He was a magical man with such intelligence. He was just amazing.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I do want to talk about, Linda, like some of the things that, I guess, misconceptions about Hammond himself, right? And what the castle would like to present to the public. Now, what do you want folks to know about this amazing man?
Well, that he was an incredible inventor, 437 patents, one of probably the fifth most prolific inventor in the United States. And he sold quite a few of them to the government, but that was his income, and that's how he was able to afford to build the museum itself. But he wanted this to be a museum. That was he wanted to leave that legacy behind. He knew that all of his inventions would be improved upon by time. Like our drones today, he really started the basics, what that remote control would be, being that he was known as the father of remote control. And so he was, he wanted to leave something behind that people would remember him by, something in stone, as he wrote to his dad in a letter. On an occasion that we have actually posted that, and this is why he's here, to keep his legacy.
So what are some of the more important pieces that people would want to take note of if they come visit?
Gosh, the building itself is the museum. There are so many artifacts that are built into the walls of it. The fireplaces, the mantels, the archways, and of course this beautiful organ behind us, which we'll talk about later this morning.
Yeah.
And these pieces came from his travels, right? So many pieces, architectural elements?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He went to Europe and he dug ruins out, and World War I ruins as well, bringing in archways and windows, that pieces that he thought he could build into his museum, into his castle. He loved Gothic and, the cathedral. This is his cathedral. He wanted this to be a very special part of his building. The Gothic towers, the cathedral, and then out to the courtyard, which was his French chateau. So there's just so many things to see. And even myself, after all these years of being here, I'll walk in and discover something new that I didn't know was here. So it's always an adventure.
Yeah.
There's always something new to see.
Yeah. And it's not easy being a castle 24 hours a day, so there's a lot of upkeep and restoration. We'll talk about that in a bit too. What was cool, Linda, is as we've gotten to know you the past few years, we were all sort of navigating through COVID as well, and
Yes.
but the castle thrived. And then also, I'm in Magnolia a lot, and what was great to see, especially this summer, was how busy the parking lot was every time I came by.
Oh, it's always full with visitors. We average between, I shouldn't say average, but 35 to 40,000 visitors a year.
Wow.
Wow.
So we're really busy just with our visitations and our tours. But we have so many special events that we've been holding as well, being able to do special STEM programs. I think that's something that we really want to build on. Actually, that is my goal, is to be one of the best STEM museums in Massachusetts. And we're adding the A to STEAM because of the art and culture that we are presenting here as well. So it's so many programs, concerts, movies, things that will bring a family here, that they can enjoy the museum as a family, as well as those who have the interest in historics and artifacts and things like that.
So we are going to be talking about some spooky stories that will be part of the Halloween programming.
Yes.
But those lines, is the place haunted?
I'd say not. We do not believe that the castle is haunted. We want to, we do some spiritualism, in which the Hammonds were very much involved with. But ghosts, I think not.
Yeah.
I'm here a lot by myself, actually.
You probably like some company,
And,
some
I
ghosts.
would, actually,
Yeah,
and
touch her just to make sure I had it.
You're right.
I do talk to the walls, but no one's answered back. So, we really are trying to get away from that image.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
a serious museum, and that's where we want to go. So,
And we'll talk about the spiritualism, because that really was a big part of the Hammonds' life,
was.
right? But we'll talk
Yeah.
about that later on.
Okay, it was more her life than his,
Okay.
but he was extremely supportive of her.
So Linda, so 35, 40,000 people a year visiting. How are they learning about the castle? What are they coming here for? Did you get any sort of sense of that, whether they're from Omaha or London? Like, why are they coming to Hammond Castle?
Well, we have a wonderful marketing person, Mary Goldberg, which I'm sure you both know. And, we just try and spread the word as far and wide as we possibly can that we're here. Just that social media has carried us far. And we always are posting things. You'll be talking with John Lysether later this morning, and he's our curator, and he's developed a whole series of YouTube programming that we do every Tuesday morning.
Very cool, too, yeah.
Learning about the castle, learning about an artifact in the castle, the people who lived here, what they did. And it's a marvelous program. They're short clips, and they're weekly, and I think we may have almost close to 3 years of clips at the moment. So he's done a fabulous job doing that.
Yeah.
And someone sees it, piques their interest, and, I've got to go there. So we just really word of mouth, getting it out there, advertising.
Right.
And mixing up our programs, having programs that have an interest to every age group and personal interests. So
Now, from someone far away watching this and trying to understand the castle for the first time, just sort of a basic overview of the campus here. Like, we sit right on top of the ocean, literally.
we do.
Yep.
Yeah, you can feel the wind howling through the walls
Yeah.
today.
Hear it, yeah.
Yes, well, when Hammond bought the property, he had about 7 acres of land that he purchased and then built the castle on his ideal spot, and it actually is an ideal spot. In past years, we've actually sold off pieces of land to help support the museum itself and keep it, to be able to keep that structure safe and sound and strong, so that it would be here for generations to come. But we do have our ocean lawn, which is gorgeous for parties and events.
I've
do
been to
quite a
several
few
weddings
events
back
I was
here.
there.
going to
It's
say,
great.
all those mini
Yeah.
weddings you
Yeah.
held during
Oh,
COVID, right? We
that's-
talked about that at one point.
Yes, that became very popular.
Yeah.
And then we actually still have those petite weddings.
That's
They're
great.
2
Petite
hours,
weddings.
and they can come in and be wed on the stairs or out on the lawn, and then have a little bubbly if they wish,
Yeah.
and have 2 hours to take photographs all through the entire museum, inside and out. So
Oh, that's so lovely.
It is a wonderful part.
Yeah.
And people are continuing to have that interest. I actually have one tonight.
Right.
So.
And there are lots of ornate architectural features throughout the outdoors as well, those
Yes,
spaces too.
There are. And actually, we are going to be doing a restoration, I should say, on our arches. They're 12th and 13th century, in what we refer to as the cloister of the castle. And that's where Hammond built out from the museum itself, past his laboratories, which is where our museum shop is now and our offices. But past that, there's beautiful archways that overlook the ocean. And we're going to do a restoration project on that. The Gloucester CPA has been very generous in helping us do those projects, and we're so appreciative of that.
Yeah, and we should mention too, those archways Linda's talking about. If you ever notice online photographs of the castle, if you're not getting the drone footage or the shot from the ocean somewhere, there are pictures of it's just couples in the archways. Like, that's the most photographed spot
It really
of the castle.
is.
Yeah.
Everybody comes here.
It's
to
a
have their
selfie
picture.
spot.
Yeah, it really
The
is.
original
Spot.
selfie spot,
No,
yeah.
for sure.
So folks are coming to the castle, and what can they expect once they come here? Like we mentioned the gift shop, what are some of the little features of the castle they can enjoy?
Yeah, well, actually, just being able to come in and just walk around at their leisure with self-guided tours. We offer those as well as guided tours. I have a very talented staff of guides, and they're fantastic, and they make it personal to you. They pretty much overlook what their group is like and address them in a way that makes it personal. And you're here in Hammond's home, and yes, all these beautiful things around you and lots of history, but yet there's that personal feeling that people lived here. This was his home, and we want to make sure that people understand that as well, in their appreciation for the beauty around them. So there's gardens coming down from the parking area, gorgeous perennial
Beautiful
gardens,
gardens,
which
yeah.
we're going to actually working on those too.
They look really good.
Always a
Really
project.
pretty, yeah.
And then the drawbridge, I think, that's the next draw. Everyone wants another photo on the drawbridge after they finish at the arches.
Right.
So I think the drawbridge is just a beautiful, it shows the towers and a wonderful representation. of the museum itself.
Yeah, and
So-
then once you're inside, all these staircases and nooks and crannies and little hidden features, and here's the library, and here, I mean, it's amazing. And like Heather said, every time you visit, you're discovering something new.
You really are. That's so much fun. And that's what we're really looking for, repeat visitors as well. We want people to come back. And that's why we change it up. We have a whole new exhibit on the Hammonds right now that was just opened the beginning of September. And it is so interesting. It's wonderful to hear about John Jr.'s, known as Jack, his family, his mom, his dad, his uncles, his brothers, and his sister. It's just wonderful to be able to see who they were and how important they were to the Gloucester. you
I love
know?
that kind of stuff.
That is so important. It
Yeah.
really is. So we do have an art exhibit that's coming here in the spring. Just kind of a little teaser on that. But we have a beautiful mural down in our war room by Eric Pape. And he was an artist that was very popular in this area. And we had a benefactor come in that restored it for us. And he's still in the picture and called me, and he had a Pape exhibit in Germany, and he's sending it over here for us to have that exhibit here in the museum the last 2 weeks in April. So our opening will be April
wonderful.
15th.
Wow.
And we have a little surprise that's coming for Gloucester itself. Pape was did a little piece, a little work for Stagework Park and the tablet at Stagework Park.
Wow.
So
And Gloucester's celebrating its 400th anniversary next year.
absolutely. So it's perfect. And Dr. Greg Kahn, who is our benefactor, will be presenting a special painting of Pape's
Wow.
to the city.
Very cool. Yeah, because the
So-
300th
So
anniversary
exciting.
was in front of that rock at Stage 4
Yeah.
Park. Yeah, big
Yeah.
party. Very
So-
cool.
Just tell me when Pape was working in Gloucester, what years?
you're pushing
Sort of
it.
generally.
Yeah,
30s?
in the 30s, the 20s
Okay.
and 30s.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah. And the mural is, I think it's 1918 is our mural.
Okay.
And it's exquisite, and it's one of the last murals that are existing of Pape's work. So that's another good reason to come to the museum to see that mural. It's like it's a fictitious painting of Gloucester Harbor if it had come under siege during World War II. So they're torpedoes, which of course Hammond invented a torpedo and guided missiles and things like that. So it has the torpedoes and it has towers, radio towers, and you can see a ship blowing up in the harbor, and it's really quite wonderful.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah.
Linda, did you want to talk about the gift shop quickly?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'd
your beautiful
love
necklace.
to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. We've made a concerted effort to find unique and wonderful things to sell in a museum shop. When you go to a museum shop, you really find unusual things that you don't see in other places.
True.
And we've been hard at work making that happen here. We have a wonderful shop, and we'll be open right through the holidays for a little Christmas shopping, if you wish, or holiday shopping. And but we found some really wonderful designers in this particular
beautiful.
piece, which I love. I have two of her works. She's called Chick Boss, is her name, and so we really look for unique things that really will make a difference and draw people here. I'd love to have the museum shop be a destination as well as the museum. So, but it is a treat when you're going through it after you've been in the museum to pick up a little something that says Hammond Castle Museum. And we have several pieces, booklets that talk about Hammond, the tales of Hammond Castle, and written by our beloved curator, John Pettibone, who was here for
Yes.
years
Oh, yeah.
and years and years, and still pays a visit to us in
Nice.
his retirement now and again. So
Very cool.
but
We'll
it's
get
fun.
shot glasses on the way out, Heather. Okay.
Yeah, we have those.
That's great. So, Linda, if people want to learn more about the castle or come and visit, how can they go about doing that?
And they can go to hammondcastle.org, visit our website. It's you can go from place to place. You can see photographs of all of the museum there. You can look at programming that we have, upcoming events, which are plentiful from now through the end of the year. And it's really that's the best route to find us. Or hashtag Hammond Castle Museum, photographs and things like that.
Yeah.
So you can get a peek but there's nothing like walking through that door and being here in person.
Well said. Well, it's always, I love having conversations with you, Linda,
Thank you.
as always. So, of course, we're going to want to have to come back at some point,
Oh,
too.
I hope you do. We
reach
love
out.
having you here as well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks.
That's Linda
Thank
Harvey,
you.
the Executive Director of Hammond Castle. I love talking to her, Heather.
I agree. I love being here.
Yeah.
It just feels, it's wonderful seeing all the changes that are sort of incremental, but important. And, you know, and I noticed them. It's been a year, maybe, not even quite, since we were here last. And you're doing just a great job, Linda.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Thanks. It's a joy, absolute. Love getting up in the morning and go to work. Then, you know, when you love your job so much.
Your
you
job
can't
in the
wait
castle.
To get there.
Yeah, you're always
It's the
here,
best.
too.
Yeah, it's the best.
Thanks for your time, but thanks for having us, your generosity having us here great.
Thank you.
We love being here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. All right, who do we have next? Is John Lyseth? You're up, John. Are you like you? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Great.
John, how you doing? John Lyseth
John.
is a curator here at Hammond Castle. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Love chatting with you as well. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been about a year, I think.
Yeah.
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 So you have a new exhibit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our new exhibit is on the Hammond family because, you know, as much as our renewed focus is on the inventor himself, John Hayes Hammond Jr., his family was pretty significant as well. His father, John Hayes Hammond Sr., was incredibly famous in his day, one of the wealthiest men in really the world. He was a gold mining engineer, and that's really where the family fortune came from. And so if you were to just look at John Hayes Hammond Sr., you would think that he would turn out to be the most famous member of the family, but of course his second son really established himself and became even more well known. But just because we have a couple of men named John Hayes Hammond Jr. that were so widely known doesn't mean the rest of the family wasn't significant. You know, he had a couple of brothers, he had a sister, and he had some extended family that I think are quite interesting. So this exhibit really goes into all of those individuals.
So tell us about those siblings.
So probably the most famous, aside from John Hayes Hammond Jr., was Natalie Hayes Hammond. She was a real Renaissance woman. She was an artist. She dabbled in a number of areas and became quite accomplished as a painter, as a miniaturist, and she developed a very unique form of applique, a metallization process that she had her own company to market. And by the time she was 30 years old, she had about 1,500 employees.
Wow.
She was an inventor in her own right, although she only filed one patent, a far cry from the 437 that her brother filed, but nevertheless, she was keen to establish herself as a modern, independent woman. She never married, and she was really restless. She really wanted to kind of break through that glass ceiling, so to speak, back in the early part of the 20th century.
And are there any examples of her work in the castle?
Yes, there are a couple. There is a beautiful needlepoint work she did of an Italian city. It's up in our upper hallway. So as you come in through the lobby, you pass it on the left as you're going towards the drawbridge entrance. We also have a stained glass piece that she designed, which is in our exhibit room as part of this family exhibit. So we do have a few things, but of course she has her own museum herself in North Salem, New York.
Oh, wow. So that's where she was based.
Well, she was based in Gloucester for many years, but then in the 1950s, she moved up to New York.
Because the parents' home was next door to here, right?
Pretty much, yeah, about a mile and a half northeast of here, on Western Avenue.
So, John, I want to talk about your passion for learning, like all things Hammond, because obviously it never gets old. We can tell how enthused you are by it. So, where did that come from? Where did that curiosity come from, and why are you so passionate about this?
I think historical figures that were once well known and then fell into somewhat obscurity are fundamentally interesting because it gives you the sense of digging them up. Hammond knew that he was going to be forgotten, at least his career was going to be forgotten. He predicted this very early on.
How did he know that?
Well, he understood that people, even people with, famous careers. If you're in the scientific field, for example, technology marches on. People are going to improve upon your work, and because of that, generally they're going to forget about you unless you have something truly startling and world-changing, like his mentor Alexander Graham Bell with the telephone. Well, obviously we remember his name because we all use telephones every single day. And even though drones have become increasingly popular, even though radio-controlled devices are part of many people's everyday lives, it's not something that you immediately think of. You don't think of Hammond's name, in other words, necessarily associated with it. But therein lies the opportunity, because it is basically our mission, or one part of our mission, to remind the public of how significant he was and what a pioneer he was, right here in Gloucester, Mass.
And we spoke to Linda a little bit, and we promised to talk about the issue of spirituality, or spiritualism, I should say, not spirituality, spiritualism. And that, so tell us about Hammond's wife and her interest in that, and how Hammond picked up on it.
Well, his wife, Irene Hammond, always seemed to have this interest in these sort of esoteric movements. Whether you're talking about spiritualism in general, astrology, sort of psychic phenomenon, that sort of thing. Very popular in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Things like seances became, kind of a popular thing to do. And so she had this interest in that phenomenon that seemed to predate Hammond, but I think a little bit of it rubbed off on him too, considering the famous experiment he did here with the psychic Eileen Garrett regarding ESP. They set up a Faraday cage, which is basically an environment that blocks electromagnetic interference. And they did some of these standard psychic tests where they have a card with a shape or a word or something on it, and the psychic tries to guess what it is. And so she's cut off from any sort of electromagnetic waves, because Hammond was kind of curious to see if ESP was indeed real. Was it something that could be carried like other pieces of information, whether it was radio control signals or audio or video data, if that was connected to ESP. The only thing the experiment really concluded is that if ESP is real, it's nothing to do with the EM spectrum. But he was a curious man, and I think from a scientific basis, he was interested to see if there was anything to that.
And all your time here, John, and researching Hammond and the family, and being around inside the castle or on these grounds, has there been anything that has wowed you? Like you didn't expect this, you didn't really first learn about it until you did a deeper dive into something about the family or this place that makes you call yourself to attention?
Well, what strikes me is how ahead of his time he was in certain respects, which the best inventors should be, right? You should be a little bit prescient. But some of the interesting things that he worked on, for me, for example, was his telespot system, which was kind of an ancestor of the fax machine. It was a way of sending sort of graphical information over television waves. And this was in the 1950s that this system was developed. He also had a navigational guide system in the late 20s that worked remarkably similar to GPS. It was for early pilots who didn't have all the sophisticated instrumentation we have today, and so during foggy conditions or just the dark of night, sometimes it would be difficult for them to tell where they were going to land, but Hammond came up with a system that used television transmitters to basically triangulate the position of the plane, show them a beacon representing their plane, their relation to the landing target. And if you think about it, I mean, that's not really all that different from using GPS today, except we use satellites instead of ground-based transmitters. So the fact that he saw where a lot of that was coming even in the pre-digital age is interesting to me.
Well, we can't ignore his entangled personal life. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, Hammond had an active social life. He had a lot of very famous friends. There's a lot of stories and rumors about Hammond that we don't really need to delve into, but he was a very humorous man. He had a very mischievous sense of humor, and like many men of his sort of social class and sort of socioeconomic status of the time, he had a lot of fun parties with famous people and that sort of thing. But to me, the work is more interesting in some cases than the man himself.
What stands out to you? I mean, it's a variation of the question I asked before, but is there a favorite spot or a favorite thing that he's created? I mean, we've come here, you know, in the last few years coming here, we found the wine cellar, the hidden wine cellar, the dog,
Yes,
robotic
so
dog.
we know, yes.
Yeah, there's so many odd facets to this place, to the person. So is there something that you gravitate towards or want to, or can't wait to share with people?
Well, I do love Solino. I do love the robot dog.
Yeah.
I mean, he may be a box on wheels, but I think that's very interesting. But there's another thing, another invention of his, that we are actually going to be releasing soon as a product.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. See, Hammond, one of his first inventions, in fact, the actual first patent he was ever granted, was for a naval board game.
Wow. Battleship.
You know, it looks like Battleship, but it actually plays a lot more like chess. So we have produced that game to be sold in the gift shop for people to enjoy, and I've played it myself. I worked on adapting it, and I gotta say, if you're into, you know, tactical strategy games, it's actually pretty good.
Wow.
It's
that's
actually
fun.
genuinely really interesting to play, and it really forces you to use your brain. So yeah, I think that is one of the more exciting things we're working on right now.
Yeah.
Well, I had the opportunity to interview the granddaughter of John Hammond Jr.'s cook at one point. And she told me stories about the fact that he was very interested in cooking, and he was a recipe clipper.
Yes. One of the things that we did this season was to emphasize in our kitchen and in our staff room the sort of daily life of people who lived here. And that included looking at their old menus, because a lot of those survived, their shopping lists. What products did they buy? For example, Hammond was apparently the Hammond family was a fan of Wheaties. We see that show up several times in the grocery list. And so we've used the kitchen to kind of focus on that. We have a couple of models that show sort of sample meals. Irene, for example, was a big fan of steak tartare, which personally I find revolting, but she apparently liked it. So Hammond was fond of kitchen gadgets. He made a few himself. He made a magnetic mixer. He made a panless stove, the original prototype and the production model, which you can see in our kitchen.
Wow.
Basically used foil to cook on instead of a pan, so you didn't have to clean up afterwards. Not the greenest idea in the world, but this was the 1950s and nobody was really thinking about that then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was very much interested in that whole arena.
You know, John, I want to ask, where are the descendants of the Hammonds today? And are they connected to the castle at all? What happened?
There are no more Hammonds from that line, actually.
All those children, none of those children?
Hammond never had any children,
Right.
And his siblings never had any children.
5 siblings, right? Did you
Well,
say?
well, he didn't have 5 siblings.
Oh.
There were 5. There were 5 siblings total. One of them died in childhood, Nathaniel Harris Hammond.
Okay.
So really, there were 4, including Jack Hammond himself. So yeah, none of them had children. So that line ended. They had some English cousins as well, but that line ended too, actually earlier than the American branch. So there are simply no more Hammonds. There's some living relatives on his wife's side, but that's about it.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, John, people want to learn more. I'd love to find out, like, a curator's day. Like, what exactly goes into your day? Like, where do you start?
It's very varied. You know, I'm sort of a restless person myself, so I kind of relate to Hammond because he had his mind going in a bunch of different directions at once. So I'm fortunate in that I get a lot of creativity with this job. So I usually spend my day working on bits and pieces of a lot of different projects, whether it's exhibits, whether it's things like, you know, this board game that we're coming out with. It's really never the same day twice. So you know, that's the way I like it though, because that makes the work interesting, and we're constantly discovering new information about Hammond. We're pulling out things from our archives that gives things a greater context. So I work very closely with the archivists on that, and all of it, you know, goes into the hopper, and I come out with, you know, whether it's videos, exhibits, etc. And I enjoy it. It's great.
Yeah, and you should check out Hammond Castle's social media presence, especially YouTube channel, where the videos that you produce live, and they're really cool. I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah, there's gonna be more to come. There's gonna be longer format things too. Yeah, that's a whole part. That's a whole part of the job that I really enjoy and that I'm anxious to do more of.
Had you known about Jack Hammond before you accepted this position?
Yeah, I actually first came to this castle when I was probably about 8 years old.
Oh.
I came with my father, I remember, on a tour. I remember being at the gift shop and buying a few little figurines of knights and that sort of things. I've always been interested in that. Came here a couple times when I was a kid. And so I had some context, but it wasn't really until I started working here that I had a full appreciation for this man who, quite frankly, I think deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as a Nikola Tesla or an Alexander Graham Bell or a Thomas Edison.
Great stuff as always, John. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge. We can't wait to continue the conversation with you. We make a return visit, so hopefully we get a lot of guests here for the month of October and beyond.
Hope so, yeah.
And we'll skip back here ASAP.
All right.
Thanks for your time, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for all your work.
John Lysop, he is the curator here at Hammond Castle Museum. We could listen to that for hours.
I know. And I'm sorry, Kory, but you jumped right to what he does as a curator, and I wanted to hear more about the family.
I know, but
I know, it's interesting.
But it's like you said, when you walk in, you notice something different every time. Just in this room alone, you notice different things. So to be able to, you're working here on campus, and not only are you learning more about, I didn't know a lot of that family history.
No.
About the siblings, which is pretty fascinating. But then, you're just on the job all the time. It's like, of course your mind, the wheels are just going to be spinning all the time. Like, where do you stop?
Yeah, no, I think probably his job, he thought he was starting with Jack Hammond, and as his job just got bigger and bigger as he realized the dimensions in his life and the family too.
And no descendants.
I know. That's amazing. It really is. So no wonder Jack Hammond was worried that knew he would disappear in history.
Yeah, right. What's your legacy?
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing stuff.
So
Okay.
who's next?
Oh, well, next is Caleb McMurphy. And Caleb is the Director of Visitor Services and Education. Everyone's job is so grandiose here. They got to cover a lot of ground. So.
Well, it's a grand place.
It's true. Everyone wears a lot of hats.
How you doing, Caleb?
Hi, Caleb.
Well,
Good to meet you, bud.
Good to meet you too.
Yeah. So, hey, October at Hammond Castle.
October at Hammond Castle.
There's got to be a lot of stuff going on.
Wait.
here.
I want to read something first.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to read something first, okay?
Dim the lights?
Maybe. Okay, listen. The windows were long, narrow, and pointed, and at so vast a distance from the black oaken floor as to be altogether inaccessible from within. Feeble gleams of encrimsoned light made their way through the trellised panes and served to render sufficiently distinct the more prominent objects around. The eye, however, struggled in vain to reach the remoter angles of the chamber or the recesses of the vaulted and fretted ceiling. Dark draperies, I could go on. Okay, what's that from? Do you know?
I do know. Do you want me to say it's because you
I
told
do.
me earlier?
Just have to finish the passage.
It's from The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe.
Right, but it could be here, right?
It
could
could
be this
certainly be
place.
here.
I mean, I could read on more,
No.
but I won't. And there's even more that just sounds exactly like this place.
No, and you're absolutely right to pull out that connection, as we are for the Halloween event, which is the Masquerade of the... I'm supposed to turn to that camera. The Masquerade of the Abbadia Mare, which is a sort of walk-through theatrical event based on the works of Edgar Allan Poe, who is, of course, one of America's most prominent Gothic writers. Hammond liked a lot of Gothic writers, actually. There was a whole literary essay published in the Essex Historical Society back in the 80s reading Hammond Castle as an artifact of Gothic literature and reading through
there you go.
Hammond's personal library, including the complete collected works of Edgar Allan Poe and a
he
number
has
of other sort of notable books. And it's not a coincidence that the term for that literary movement, Gothic, that's with a CK, is the same as the architectural style Gothic with a singular K that Hammond was primarily inspired by in building this particular portion of the castle that we're sitting in today.
Yeah, it was just amazing to come across, and there's more in this passage, as I said, and realize he must have been reading Poe.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
most certainly he was reading Poe. He was actually such a big fan of a book called The Monk, which is pre-Poe, late 1700s, that he did a whole photo shoot of himself in a monk's robe, inspired by this book that he liked so much throughout various places in the castle, and we still have those today.
Right. He's a wild man.
Yeah.
And talk about October in Hammond Castle. That's
Yeah.
sort of the same thing that people are doing today with their photo shoots.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's, we'll get to your programming because it's fabulous. But I do want to point out that it gets a little murky. Like, was he interested in spooky, scary, Halloweeny? No, not really. He was interested in Gothic and that kind of predates spooky, scary Halloween. Am I
Well,
right?
I'll tell you this. For a guy who was fairly skeptical, and it's absolutely certain that Hammond was. For example, I don't know if this is something that's widely known, but Hammond has a UFO sighting.
Yeah.
And he was sailing his yacht off of the coast of Nova Scotia. He saw some atmospheric phenomenon in the sky, and it's an unidentified flying object, right? But Hammond, the scientist that he was, immediately attributed that to, atmospheric phenomena that he just didn't understand. Now, all that being said, skeptical, rational scientist that he was, the guy liked a lot of books about haunted old castles, and that's just undeniable.
Yeah.
Lots of ghosts and demons and mouse-ridden abbeys that are ruinously falling into dark cliffs and stuff like that. So it's certainly something he was fond of, and it demonstrates that somebody can be aesthetically fond of the Halloween thing without necessarily falling into literal ghosts and devils and demons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
You will find, I believe there's a Ouija board hidden in one of the tables here too. I have heard
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah, so there's some odd stuff.
We do have a Ouija board. We use it primarily during our spiritualism tours to talk about the history of spirit boards in general. I hate to burst a bubble.
Uh-oh.
There's not a lot of connections between Hammond, particularly in the spirit board, other than the fact that we know Irene frequented Salem, where, of course, there is a major community of spirit boards, including the Spirit Board Museum down there.
Oh, interesting. So tell us about the Abbadia Mare, the Masquerade of the Abbadia Mare.
I will. So Abbadia Mare was Hammond's name for the building. He actually preferred to call it that over Hammond Castle. It roughly translates to Sea Abbey, and it can translate a couple different ways depending on which form of Latin you use. If you use more late Renaissance liturgical Latin, it's Badia Mare without the A at the front, but it basically means Sea Abbey, and it's what he would have called this place. It is a walking theatrical event, so you start on the back lawn at dusk, and then later on, as the night moves on, it gets darker and darker, and the castle is lit by lights with organ music playing. You're led into the Great Hall by Hillman the Butler, played by me. And although the genuine Hillman was an Englishman, I am not doing an English accent.
Come, you owe it to us.
I'll tell you what, we can compromise. I'll do my best Vincent Price impersonation.
There we go.
Oh,
There we
that's
go.
good. No, let's just back up a tiny bit. So Hammond had a literal masquerade here in 1929. I have that year down.
So that's the frame story for this event. Is that in 1929 the stock market crash has just happened, and Hammond has invited all of his wealthy friends to attend a masquerade at his castle to sort of shut themselves away from the troubles of the day. That's not based, I believe, on any one particular event, but the Hammonds did entertain quite a lot, and it is said that they actually rarely left the castle to go be entertained elsewhere. Of course, why would you if this was your primary residence? So it's based loosely on a number of different parties that would have happened around that time, with characters doing the readings who were frequent guests at the castle or members of staff, like Hillman the Butler.
Okay. So we've just entered the up-to-date version of the masquerade. We've arrived in this chamber. You've led. You, the butler, have led us here.
Hillman the Butler leads you to the chamber. I do a story that is somewhat based on the cask of Amontillado, but also with some Hammondabilia mixed in. Then I turn you over to the dining room, which is in that direction, but the camera's over here, where we meet Leslie Buswell, same first name, different last name. Hammond's very close friend, and someone who should be familiar to people who are interested in the Gloucester theater scene. He built Stillington Hall just up the road and was a very close friend of Hammond's. Buswell, Hammond, and a number of their close Gloucester friends put on plays like Mad at Stillington Hall and at Hammond's dad's house up the road, which John was mentioning before. And so it would not be out of place for Buswell to be taking place in this masquerade. Now, he does a thing based on The Pit and the Pendulum, another classic Poe story. Then through from there, we have Eileen Waters, one of the housemaids, doing a version of The Telltale Heart. Irene Hammond, Hammond's wife, doing a rendition of The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar. Natalie Hammond, doing a rendition of The Fall of the House of Usher, which incorporates some of the family elements that John had talked about before. And then finally, we have the man himself, John Hayes Hammond Jr., to do, well, I won't spoil it, but if you followed a little bit of Poe, you might be able to pick up on the clues as you're going through.
But you don't have to know the Poe to enjoy this
No, you don't.
performance.
You do not have to know the Poe, nor do you have to wear a mask, although we are encouraging people to, if they so desire.
Everyone's used to wearing a mask these days.
Yeah.
So how often does the program run?
It is once every 15 minutes, beginning at 6 o'clock and ending at 9 o'clock. And there's one block in there that is empty just so folks can have a sit down.
That's a pretty, as a butler, you're a 15-minute turnaround.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got
That's serious stuff.
each of the sides last about 10 minutes, so we have about 5-minute FUD factor on either side just for timing and moving people from place to place. So it's manageable, and it's something that we've been able to manage before. But yeah, it is sort of a tight performance, and hopefully we'll pull it off in a way that preserves the verisimilitude of the horror.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been here for similar performances before. It's really cool, just going from room to room to room. And
Yeah, if you and it sounds like you know, but if you've never seen the castle at night,
I have
it's
not,
its own set dressing.
Yeah.
It's magnificent.
Yeah, yeah. So this starts when?
This is going to be starting this Friday. The 7th is the first performance, and then every successive Friday, the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th.
Right.
Caleb, you're the director of visitor services, right?
That is
And
correct.
obviously we've heard like the castle's had a bang-up year, which is awesome to hear. Where are people coming from? And what are they gravitating towards the most, or what's making their eyes pop the most?
Well, as to where they're coming from, do you have like a world map somewhere?
Yes, all over, right?
I mean, I am consistently surprised. I think almost every tour guide on my staff asks the question, where are you from at the start of the tour? And you would be shocked the diversity of answers we get. We get people from Brazil, Peru, Portugal, and even far afield places in the United States, right? Iowa and Nebraska, and even later in the season than you might expect. So that's hard to say. And as to what people are drawn to, there's just so much stuff. Like you could spend an entire day, if you're, say, some retired engineer, in our invention room, reading through the exhibits that John has put together based on the invention stuff. And you would be fully satisfied that was a complete museum experience. Now, then let's say you're, a church organist, right? Visiting here from Schenectady. You're going to be able to find more than enough to occupy yourself for hours and hours, if you so desire, learning about the magnificent organ that's a centerpiece of this building. And I could go on, right? So what are people drawn to? I mean, whatever sparks their interest. And there is a lot of things to spark their interest. And the diversity of people we get from a diversity of locations really leads to that being varied in and of itself.
Why do you love what you do so much? Yeah, what is it about this place that winds you up?
Well, I'd hate to give you the same answer twice, but I've been working here now. There was a gap there for the off season, but I've been working here now for probably about a year and change. And still, every day, I read something in the archive or on one of the wall plaques, or I'm talking to one of our maintenance people, and I learn something, learn about a historical fact about Hammond, a historical fact about the castle, some little nook or cranny that I had absolutely no idea that existed. For example, a couple weeks ago, I was reading some old tour materials, and I found out that they shot a movie in Hammond Castle in 1969. Otto Preminger, the director, shot a movie starring Liza Minnelli in Hammond Castle called
Did you know that?
Tell Me That You Love Me, Junie Moon.
No.
I've heard of that movie.
And I watched it, and it's okay. It's all right.
Did you see the castle?
Yeah, and not only do you see the castle, you see the interior of the castle as it was in 1969, so 4 years after Hammond's death. And there's Liza Minnelli sitting on the child sarcophagus. Don't do that. Do not touch museum artifacts. But Liza Minnelli has sat on the child
Is that
sarcophagus.
the one that you were sitting on over there?
Now you're going to get me in trouble.
Sorry, yeah.
And stuff like that is so incredible because you'd think, you work here for a year, you think you would have heard all the stories, right?
Right.
Like, you'd think you'd get in circulation the same 5 or 6 points, right? But no, every day, if not like every week, I learn a thing that totally changes my understanding of this place. So if you haven't been here in a while, I guarantee you'll find something that will just blow your mind.
Well, I think Gloucester needs to do a better job of promoting the films that have been produced here, because that is not on the anyone's list that I know of, right?
Yeah, I believe that film was primarily shot down in Manchester, and they used a couple of locations around the area for
see.
it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to exclusively plug for a movie that's 50
Yeah.
years old and
Yeah.
is, of
Yeah, we don't know what his Rotten Tomatoes rating is.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
probably not-
I'm not trying to impugn
Yeah.
or
Okay.
promote Tell Me That You Love Me, Junie Moon. It's just using it as an example of something I found out that I didn't know before.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, very cool, Caleb. Okay, so last call here for the Masquerade of Abbadia Mare.
Yeah.
If people want to learn more about it or get tickets, how can they go about doing that?
Go to our website, hammondcastle.org. You can find all the information on there, as well as sort of a brief summary of what the sort of basic outline is. Get yourself into character. You can purchase masquerade masks in our museum store. And we'll see you some Friday in October if you want to swing by.
I do have one more question.
Sure.
So who produced this drama? Because it sounds like it's really complicated.
So it was primarily written by our former curatorial director, Scott Cordner, and he has now shifted to a job in education, working in local schools with special ed stuff. So he had worked on the script for a long time, and there's a lot of connections between Hammond and this sort of Gothic literature, as we were talking about before. In fact, Hammond wrote a lot of Gothic literature himself, and not to denigrate too much, but I was reading a manuscript page earlier today for a story he wrote when he was maybe like 18, called The House of Death. And written on this manuscript page in pencil somewhere in our archive, and we don't know by who, is bad. And then you turn the page and you have Bad Poe.
Fan fiction, the original fan fiction writer.
Essentially, right? It's all
Bad
this,
Poe.
dark haunted abbey stuff.
Yeah.
So I think Scott was really inspired by that, and he had wanted to put this together for a while. He had put together another successful sort of event based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft. That was The Horror of Abbadia Mare a couple of years ago, in which I played the librarian. So if you came to that, you would have seen me there. And so I think we always wanted to put together sort of a second one of these based on Hammond's literary interest, and that's what we did. I'm handling most of the production duties at this point. Scott sort of stepped back busyness-wise, but he did most of the writing, and he left us with a really solid script with a good mix of Hammond facts and text lifted directly from Poe. Maybe even that quote you mentioned before.
Yeah, maybe. Exactly.
Yeah, and the last time we were here in October, Scott was with us on the show, which is great. So I'm glad he's doing well, and I'm glad this production's moving forward.
Oh, yes.
And so, yeah, good luck with everything. Enjoy your October here at the castle. Kayla, it was great getting to chat with you, man. That was a lot of energy. We love energy.
Well,
on this
I'm
show.
glad you like energy, and hopefully we'll
Lot of
see you
content.
one of the
Yeah.
Fridays
Great.
in October, Kory.
You got it, bud.
right.
All right, take care.
Thank you,
Caleb
Caleb.
McMurphy, folks. He is the Director of Visitor Services and Education here at Hammond Castle, and he will be your butler for the Masquerade
That
of
is
Abbadia
quite a
Mare.
show. I'm going to come see that. It
Very
really
cool.
sounds amazing.
So I wonder if I was here for a rehearsal for that a couple of years ago at night. I came here to cover something for them and went through room to room. And Caleb, it must have been you when I was going through from room to room. Yeah, awesome stuff. All right, who's next? Oh, Jim Craig is up next.
Yeah, we're going to find out about the programming.
There's even more going on. Unbelievable.
Hi,
Gang,
Jim.
how you
Nice to
doing?
see you.
Yeah,
Good.
good to see you, Heather.
Yeah, it's been a
How you
while.
doing, Jim? Great to see you, bud.
Great to see you again.
Jim is the special events manager here at the castle.
And there's
which
so
means-
many special
which means
events.
you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
That's the rumor flying around,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's true.
I have so many questions about this.
Well, please hit
Yeah.
me. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, well, let's go through them one by one first.
Okay.
So the Brotherhood of the Arrow and Sword. Tell us
yes.
about that.
Well, let's put it this way. Some folks, for their hobby, they might collect stamps, or maybe they like to play an instrument. Brotherhood of the Arrow and Sword, these guys like to get dressed up in full plate mail armor from head to toe, grab their battle axes, their war hammers, and bash the heck out of each other.
That is amazing.
Some real live LARPing is going on here.
Pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, on October 9th, we're going to be having Brotherhood of the Arrow and Sword come here. So these bad boys are going to be setting up a ring down on the back lawn overlooking the ocean.
Is this legal?
It is legal.
Do
There's
they have new armor or old armor?
Oh no, it's replica armor.
Yeah,
So
okay,
they're
so-
not
so
actually
it's-
wearing museum pieces.
Okay, all
Thank you
right.
for asking. No museum artifacts were harmed in the making of this
Yeah.
production.
Well, I was thinking more about their own personal safety. I mean,
Well, that's one of the things about this show. It shows you the brutal reality of medieval warfare. Like, we all watch the movies and we see this stuff, or Game of Thrones. Oh my God, when you see what these guys go through, there's a reason we're holding it in October, because we couldn't do it in the summer. The
be
heat
too
is
hot.
just too much. I mean, you can get heat stroke in this stuff. And these guys are running around and doing their thing.
can they run?
Believe it or not, you can. In plate mail armor, you can. One of the fun things is if you ever look at some of the medieval training manuals, they even talk about how climbing up the underside of a ladder in full armor, going ahead and dancing vigorously in the armor.
Because
It's
you
all
must
part of
weigh
conditioning.
another like 50 pounds or something, right?
Not so much, but
No, okay.
it certainly puts a few pounds on you, though.
Yeah.
So what's going on, Jim? So there's a ring set up?
They set up a ring in the back, and then we're having 2 shows at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, where these guys are going to go ahead and demonstrate the realities of medieval warfare. They're breaking out, like I said, the war hammers, the swords, the battle axes, the spears, some of the more exotic weaponry as well of the time, and really showing us, the grim realities of this. But in a way that's educational and fun. It's for all ages. One thing I have to stress, we're expecting a lot of folks for this. So we partnered with Gloucester High School, and they've generously lent us the use of their parking lot.
to
as
shuttle?
Satellite parking. Yep, we got free parking. We have a free shuttle. 2 shuttles going to be running back and forth all day. So we have the ability to accommodate a lot of folks for this. And we're expecting some huge crowds.
Have you ever done it before here?
We tried last year, and then the darndest thing happened. Mother Nature decided to make it rain on us that day.
Oh, and you can't go out in the rain in a full thing of armor?
Well, are you familiar with the Battle of Agincourt?
Yes, I am.
Yes, well, remember, they did it in the mud,
Yeah.
and I think that half
The
the
worst
French knights
battle.
died
Yeah,
suffocating in mud.
exactly.
It's not
Yeah.
recommended to do medieval warfare in the rain.
Yeah.
It's bad PR. Anything like that.
Well, it rusts right away and all
Well,
that mud. Yeah.
there's ways to take care of that, but
So, so you have not done it on these premises yet? You have?
no, this is going to be the first time. So
Okay.
we're really excited about it. Though. We're really looking forward
It
to it.
sounds fascinating.
No,
It
these
really
guys are
does.
hardcore. They're,
Yeah.
they're great. It's
Okay.
not Hollywood.
So next we have Nosferatu. Am I saying that right?
Yes, and speaking of Hollywood, Nosferatu.
Right? Yeah. A Symphony of Horror with Peter Krasinski.
Yes.
And he will be playing the original Chickering piano. Is that right?
Wow, you do your research, young lady.
I just read it off.
We have to be on our, you walked into Hammond Castle, you kind of have to be on your game. Do a little bit of research.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us about that.
Well, one thing, right here in the Great Hall is where the performance is going to take place.
Oh, beautiful.
Maybe this was covered earlier, but a lot of folks don't realize the Great Hall, from the very beginning, part of its design was for concerts. And so on our Chickering piano, such greats as George Gershwin himself played here.
No way.
Oh, didn't know that?
I did not know that. No.
Oh, no.
Did you know that?
I did know
Oh,
that.
sorry. All right. But I did my homework anyway.
You did most of your homework. We will hold that against you.
Yeah, okay.
No, so this room was designed, that's why it has such superior acoustics. That's why we have this grand piano sitting here, as well as an organ console. And so what we see happening, we're going to be bringing in the film. Well, this is like a seminal movie in horror movie literature. This is the first vampire film. And it is October, so we have to bring this in here. So we're going to be showing it in the Great Hall. And the great concert pianist Peter Krasinski is going to be doing the accompaniment for it on the Chickering piano. So we've had Peter here before. He did Robin Hood last autumn. A very entertaining character, and the piece, it just goes seamlessly. The thing that I'm in awe of is that this man, he does the whole show. I mean, there's no breaks, there's no pauses. He doesn't get to, oh, I'm sorry, 5 minutes, got to stretch my fingers or hit the head. No, he's from start to finish, he is performing. And that's on the 12th, and
Yeah.
then on the 26th we
I
have
see that. We have the Phantom of the Opera.
exactly
Yeah.
the classic with Lon Chaney. Yeah.
setup. Yeah, exactly. So Peter will be at the Chickering piano, and the performance will be on a screen. Is that what you're
Yep,
saying?
Indeed, Heather. At the far end of the Great Hall, where the stairs go up into the courtyard, that's where we set up the screen. We're partnering with our good friends at the Cape Ann Community Cinema.
Yeah, Rob
Yeah.
Newton and gang.
Yep, Rob's
Yeah.
coming in, so great guy. He's going to be hooking us up with the projection and the film. Peter does the accompaniment, and we provide the space.
Yeah, it's a great thing about the castles. You come in during the day, and because of the light, you're noticing different things. You come at night, that's a whole different vibe. And the way you folks put performances on is pretty mind-boggling.
Well, thank you. No,
You can read
Hammond
that.
helps sells it though.
What am I reading? No, you can read that one.
No,
First of all, I
that-
can't read it.
All right. So what do we have happening on October 27th?
October 27th, that is the meet and greet trick or treat. So this is where all the little ones of Cape Ann are invited to come on down and trick or treat through the castle. So
Some of them might be a little scared. That's my feeling.
Amped up.
Nah, we've done this before.
Yeah.
No one has ever run out screaming.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
So what we do is we go ahead and the little ones get to trick or treat through the castle, room to room, as ghosts and goblins go ahead and dole out the holiday goodies. And the kids themselves, of course, they have to come in costume. That
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
without saying. And we invite the parents, guardians, etc., to also come in costume, because it's not just trick or treating. We do have a party at the end as well. So we're going to go ahead and be playing all kinds of spooky music, having little, age-appropriate ghost stories being read to the kids, bubble machine, the whole bit going on.
That's great.
So hopefully the weather will allow it to be outdoors. If not, we can make accommodations.
Yeah.
But we're really looking forward to having this. It's from 3:30 to 6, and just come on down. It's a party.
So I am also really interested in the ongoing event you have of the Candlelight and Spiritualism specialty, right?
Yes.
So specialty tours.
What would you like to know about that? Well, we've already kind of touched on this in a way.
Yeah, we did.
John talked about, of course,
Yeah.
the Hammonds and their interest in spiritualism.
So are you having people who are very seriously committed to spiritualism show up, and do they return for? Is this something you return to and do regularly if you're interested in that?
This is a seasonal event,
Okay.
and it's castle staff that go ahead, and it's our guide staff headed by Caleb that go ahead and lead the folks through. When it comes to the patrons come, like our patronage here, comes from all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
It's one thing I do have to stress. It's not a seance. This is a tour
Okay.
where you're going and you're learning about the Hammonds and their involvement in the spiritualism movement, as well as spiritualism itself. This is it goes back to upstate New York with the Fox sisters in the 1830s, 1840s, and it's still going strong today. Just a few weeks ago, we actually had psychics here in the castle, going ahead and doing readings and mediumship and what have you. That's something we do touch upon. Can't get a psychic in here though in October. They're all down in Salem.
Yeah, this is true.
So we have to go.
Someday this will be the Psychic Center in October.
Maybe we'll take you up on that.
Yeah.
Maybe you know something we don't, Miss Heather.
Well, I dabble.
Do you really?
No, I don't. Not at all, actually. I'm
Yeah.
teasing.
But I have been down here
If
with
we-
lots of psychics. Just once they're anywhere near the castle, their ears prick up.
Yeah, I would like to see that. I don't dabble at all, but I would like to see the psychics in here and how they feel about it.
We do them, let's see, on the summer solstice in June. And then also when we get into, we tried this year with the autumn solstice, the autumn equinox. And both very well attended, lots of fun. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So moving beyond October, are you working on things for November, December?
So glad you asked that
Yep.
question. Indeed, we're cranking stuff here. In the month of November, we have Hello Friends Productions coming here to go ahead and do 3 showings of Once Upon a Time. So what is Once Upon a Time? Well, it's a number of Broadway theatricals, musicals, Disney hits, what have you, involving, well, castles, fairy tales, all this good stuff.
That's great.
Yeah, last year we did it. It was Knights, Maidens, and More was the production we did last year. And it sold out all 3 nights. It's great family fun. You've done something right when you see folks go ahead and singing along with the production itself.
Yeah, there is something about a castle, right, that does that to people.
Well, I want to say there's something about the creative programming you guys are coming up with. I mean, it's not just tours of the castle. It's really sort of trying to integrate the culture with, what's on people's minds beyond.
Well, thank you. I mean, Linda has really noticed that this was lacking here at Castle. When the Hammonds lived here, this was kind of a salon. I mean, you have to think about it. You had Truman Capote here. You had the Hollywood stars like Leslie Buswell, what have you. You also had artists like Umberto Romano. This was a nexus, if you will, a place of creativity. You had theatricals taking place here. You had music. And so we're trying to bring that back. That's one of the most exciting things about being here. One of the things I love about my job is getting to be part of moving something forward. I've been in museums for 20 years now, and it's awesome to be part of a place that is really, moving forward and going in new directions that heretofore haven't been dreamt of for this place, or not since the Hammonds were here, at least.
Yeah, not static at all.
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And Jim, do we know yet, will Santa be making an appearance this
Oh,
year
yes.
and holiday concerts as well?
Yes, Santa is going to be back here in December for 2 nights. So if you want your kids to go ahead and have some time with the big guy, give him their list. It's going to be happening right here in the Great Hall. We do have Fiber Pops Orchestra coming for Christmas at the Castle. So we got 3 performances by those guys.
Nice.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention New Year's Eve. We're having our first ever New Year's Eve party.
Oh.
Fun.
So,
Fun,
we're going to be, take a good look at the roof of the Great Hall. It might not be here come January 1st, 2023.
Yeah.
No, it's,
Wow, that's going to be fun.
it's
Very special. How do we sign up?
how do you sign up? Well,
Yeah.
you got to go to the website.
Okay.
That I don't believe tickets are on sale for that yet.
Yeah.
But do keep an eye on the website. This is going to be a lot of fun. So New Year's Eve here at the castle, I'm going to be having complimentary champagne toast at midnight. Got to have the countdown, all kinds of entertainment. The theme itself, we're going to be turning this into a dance club, if you will. So we're going to be having all the hits of the 70s, 80s, and 90s leading up right to today. So rumor has it Elton John might be making an appearance, Bruce Springsteen, or at least someone who looks a lot
All
like
the
right.
greats. Yeah.
right here at the castle.
That's great.
Thanks for sharing all this with us, Jim.
much
My fun. pleasure.
First things first, we have October to get through, and you have a ton of programming going on then, and lots of great events. So if you want to learn more, hammondcastle.org for all the details, right?
Darn straight. Hammondcastle.org is one-stop shopping for all of your events
Everything you
here
need.
at the castle.
Yeah.
It was great chatting with you, Jim.
Always
Thanks
a
for your
pleasure,
time.
Kory, Heather.
Thank you so
so
much,
much.
Jim.
Yeah, have a great October.
Oh, right back at you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, folks, that is Jim Craig. He is the special events manager. He's a busy guy this time of year around here.
That really, it is so impressive what they're doing here.
Yeah.
I have to say.
It's
so-
nonstop, right? You think you're coming off of the busy season, which is summertime, the tourism, the weddings, and all that, but I always associate Hammond Castle with the autumn. Maybe it's a Halloween thing, but the way they've amped up their programming, there's
It's all
something
year,
all the time. Yeah.
basically. Well, maybe not in January, but
I wonder. I think they are doing things throughout the year now as well. At least
Maybe
where
with schools, things like
they're
that.
prepping, and then they do the April reopen every year. But
well,
geez.
it's wonderful. So now we're going to find out about the organ, right?
Yeah. Yeah, people want to know about the organ. So here we go. Joining us now is Peter Kennett. He is on the board of directors here at Hammond Castle. How are you, Peter?
Hi, Peter.
Nice to meet you.
Great
Nice
to meet
have you. Yeah.
So welcome. This is an awesome thing to be able to let your viewers be able to appreciate the constant fascination that I have and everybody else with this building. I came into the castle for the first time in 1973 when we moved here to, for me to go to Northeastern. And I've been in the building about 600 times since then. And as others have mentioned tonight, the fascination is there. There are places that I still see that I've never seen before after all of those visits. Nooks and crannies and pipe chases and all those other things. So that's the big draw that I had. When I was building pipe organs, I had heard from the builder that I worked for about this pipe organ. And he said, it's enormous. And I'm thinking, what's Hammond Castle and why is there an enormous pipe organ there? Well, it is enormous. As residence organs go, it's one of the larger ones. It's 8,269 pipes and 135 ranks. And when we talk about ranks, it's a military term. You think of rows of soldiers, and that's similar to the way the chests are planted with pipes on them. So here, just to give everybody your bearings.
And keep in mind, Peter, the microphone's here, just so we catch all your.
Gloucester Harbor's in this general direction. Okay. To this direction here would be the Reef of Norman's Woe. Down the length of the Great Hall would be Magnolia. And behind you folks is the upper parking lot in Hesperus Avenue. The towers themselves, as you view them from the street, are 3 bays wide. So if I line up here, just about right here, is where the towers end. And they run from the street side to the ocean. There were 2 towers on the street side and 2 towers on the ocean side. And they house the pipe organ. The pipes that you see here and up there are decorative facades which are dumb. And over the fireplace is the fog. The Fog Museum came in the 80s under a grant. And under all that soot was this beautiful fresco. That fresco looked better after cleaning. We're going to do the same during shutdown period this year. We'll stage up and clean these facades and the woodwork and so on, and also the pipe organs up here above the railing. Now, I don't know if the cameras can see it or not, but the rose window is above those pipes. And between the rose window and those pipes is the positif division of the organ. And over here on the right is the only organ division that we have, which is on the ocean side of the building. And that's called the Great Division. On this side, we have 3 levels of organ facilities, the lowest being what we call a relay room, which is our shop and a bunch of electronics and relays. Next level are 2 divisions of the organ. We have the swell and the choir, and then way up in the building, excuse me, we have the reed division and the solo division. And to give you an idea how high it is, there's a light way up there behind the screening in the ceiling. It's 85 feet from here up to the top of the pipe organ. So the...
You have to come closer to the mic,
Yeah.
please.
Can we untape this? There you go, Peter.
Thank you. 1623.
Yeah.
So the first 3 bays, I think the cameras can see that they're made out of window screen instead of regular material. And so what happens there is Hammond was concerned about how the sound would be brought down into the Great Hall. The Great Hall has dimensions that are similar to the ratios you'd find in a cathedral, and that's mostly to encourage acoustics. Here on this wall, under those downlights, you can see there's a dimpling in the plaster. That's not only for radiant heat, which he invented and used in this building, but it's also to disperse the sound waves a little bit. The same holds true with the steps up into the Great Hall as you go to the courtyard. Those steps, instead of having a straight flat wall on the far end, break up reflections a little bit and they improve the acoustics.
Wow.
So the screens let the sound come down in, and we have some pipes, the pedal division, which is behind the organ. We have the drapes pulled back a little bit. There are pipes in there which are 30-some feet tall. And in behind these drapes is the Baroque division. So we have 7 divisions in the organ. The console has 4 keyboards, 4 manuals. You see tablet switches you can do up and down, and we have swell shoes underneath there, which are like gas pedals in a car, and the pedals, of course. And the swell shoes do what they call expression. The chambers have Venetian blind, like very thick wood pieces, and when you push those swell shoes up and down, they open and close, so you can control the level of sound out of each chamber. And the experienced organists who always come in and practice beforehand get a feel for all of that, and they set it all up on the organ ahead of time with all those buttons, because the music they play is complex. They don't have time on an organ of this size to be batting all those tablets. So we have combinations that are set there electronically. When they play, they just hit a piston with their thumb or toe stud switch with their toe, and all these things, hundreds of them, will change like that during the period of a rest in the music.
So it's electronic, the connections
The
there.
console was originally what we call electromechanical. It looked like the inside of an enormous cash register, very, very complex mechanisms. We had world-famous organists, and there are a lot of pictures of those folks there, who used to come here and play. The problem was that the mechanism had become unreliable to the point where they might be stopping their way down ever more quietly to finish a piece, and they'd hit one more piston, and the whole bombard would come on, just completely ruin it, right? So they stopped coming to play here, and we knew we had to do something. So in the mid-'80s, we designed a new console. Ken Bolton, who was on the board then and also the president of E.M. Skinner Company, designed that console, and we put that in, and it now uses something called solid-state multiplex. So instead of having 4 or 5 cables the size of my arm with thousands of wires in them, we have a simple piece of coax like your cable TV comes in. And so it's all sent up to the chambers that way and then decoded in the chambers. Wow. Now Hammond was always tracking new technology. And it's a discussion we had on the board at the time is, would Hammond have considered adopting this new current technology in 1985 to replace the failed console? And we agreed he would have, so we did that. That's now 40-some years old. And we're getting ready to do an updated solid-state mechanism inside the same console. And the overhaul of the organ is underway. We haven't played it for 20 years because of water ingress into the building. The building is about 100 years old, and even as carefully as they built it, and it was designed by the best architects in America at the time, Allen and Collins, we're still getting too much water ingress, and that's slowly being fixed, but it's incredibly expensive to do. So as that gets fixed, we're able to now start repairing parts of the organ, and that's been underway for a little over a year now. So this winter we'll be doing facades. We're already doing work in the grate. The grate will be the first division that comes back online, and we'll start doing fundraising concerts to help offset these costs. And there's a lot of enthusiasm for that. Caleb and all the folks who do the tours get regular questions about when the organ's going to be back. And if you go to hammondcastle.org and just keep an eye out, sometime next year, we'll be able to announce when that first concert would be.
Yeah.
That's exciting. So we have to ask who's doing that organ work. Anybody we know?
It's volunteers.
Oh,
We
okay.
have one volunteer who's worked in the two largest organs in the world. That would be the Atlantic City Convention Hall, now known as Boardwalk Hall, and also in the Wanamaker organ in Philadelphia, which is now Macy's. So we have people who have built organs like me, people who have worked on much larger organs, and we have a retired master electrician and several engineers that worked with me on the drone program. So we've got a fairly mixed team, but it's very dedicated. We're in here typically 3 days a week right now to keep things moving.
That's great.
And Linda's very good about letting us fit in between things, and we try not to disrupt the tours too much, but if we do make some noise, the tour guides know to point out that that's just the sound of the organ being brought back.
So Peter, when you say that the water moisture has been problematic, is it the proximity to the ocean and the salt there? Is that a contributing factor?
That definitely on this side, on the ocean side, has been more of a problem, but it's also the type of construction that was adopted. What Allen and Collins designed to get the look that Dr. Hammond wanted was a stone veneer exterior. And some of that is what we call cast stone. Back in the days when Hammond traveled regularly to Europe, it was legal to buy antiquities. That's no longer the case, but he was able to legally buy pieces of cut stone. These, for example, might have had one arch brought back by Dr. Hammond, and then the architects had mold makers here who duplicated those shapes, and they used 2 colors of marble chips, some kinds of mortar and different kinds of sand, poured the mold and then stripped it at just the right time, brushed it lightly with a water spray, and you had perfect replicas. Today, for instance, up on the Oriel window, which we currently have under repair, we might think about some sort of 3D printer or some other way to make the molds, more modern techniques. But we still always, in everything we do here, adhere to the proper restoration techniques and give the building the respect it deserves as far as being an important historical piece of construction. And we have architects and engineers who specialize in that kind of work. So yeah, the water does penetrate to some extent, and once the repairs are done, that'll no longer be a problem. But we have to preserve the appearance and preserve the techniques and tighten it all up.
And obviously, money is time, but is there any sort of time frame, like, and not, pardon the pun, like the pipe dream for when this can be completed and fully restored?
I would guess it depends partly on how fast we can get funded. Linda's very good at chasing grants, and the grants are a way that we can really keep things moving forward. But donations are important too, and I think once we start the concerts, there'll be even more momentum picking up. But I'm going to guess 3 to 4 years probably to get it done.
Wow.
But playable sometime next year, we hope, with just the great division and the pedal division.
So you said it has not been played for 20 years, but do you remember it in full operation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been around here since 1973.
Yeah.
So when full organ was playing, we have a sideboard over here, for instance. If you put a pewter cup on that sideboard, we won't say McDonald's cup, but a pewter cup's the
Yeah.
appropriate kind, right? You could vibrate that cup along that sideboard.
Wow.
The sound pressure levels from this pedal division you can feel through your feet and in your lungs. I mean, it is the ratio between the size of the pipe organ and the number of people who can be legally seated in here, which Linda's, what, 123? 120. You probably
And the three
can't-
of us, the three of us can squeeze in there.
You probably can't find another place in the world with that kind of a ratio. It's just phenomenal. And again, part of it has to do with the dimensions and the ratios and everything. There have been a few changes up there. You can see there's a stained glass window up there in the minstrel's balcony. We didn't even know that window was there. It was covered by a piece of plywood, and we were chasing a leaking steam pipe or something here 15 or 20 years ago. And then all of a sudden, here's this stained glass window. This stuff goes on all the time around here.
Yeah.
It's just a fascinating place, and everybody's got to come see it because there's always a story to be told.
Right. So until these concerts occur, is there a way for people to donate specifically for the organ restoration?
I'm not sure how Linda would have that set up. Linda's nodding her head yes.
Yeah.
To duplicate this organ today, it would probably be $10 to $12 million. Why so much money? It's partly because of the difficult access to the site. This is not like a modern mega church built on a 15-acre piece of property where you can back a delivery truck up and offload everything and go right to the work site. You got to come down a lot of steps, down a long driveway. Everything in this building is steps. It's amazing how many steps we walk just in one day of work in the organ. So an organ builder estimating the job is going to put in all kinds of extra costs because of that. And so we have in the tower that's back here, that's a hollow chase. They made it for hoisting, and it hasn't hoisted anything in God only knows how long. But we're about to have our expert rigger come in and see what he needs to do to make it safe and legal and OSHA approved. And we'll now be able to start hoisting organ pipes up and down that chase. Because some of the pipe is going to move from up in the grate down into here to join the Baroque division. So it's an ongoing effort to go find out how to do it, but we get there and it'll be awesome.
Very cool, yeah. Fascinating stuff, Peter. So if people want to learn more about the organ or Hammond Castle, how can they go about doing that?
HammondCastle.org, or even better, come to the tour, come for the free walkthrough, come to events on the lawn. We were expecting, I think Jim mentioned it, the upcoming event on the lawn on the 9th of October is going to be incredible.
Sounds incredible.
And no worry about parking. Just go to Gloucester High School and you get the shuttle. And there's so much background with armor here, and to see it real and not on the screen, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. And so Peter, so you said, so you've been in the neighborhood since '73?
We moved to Gloucester and lived in a place at that time that was called Top of the Harbor.
Yeah.
And then moved to Magnolia for another 7 years. And once I got out of Northeastern, we moved down to Hamilton. We've been in Hamilton ever since.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I'm an Englewood Road boy myself, grew up in Magnolia.
okay.
So,
All right.
very cool. So what's it mean to see all, the evolution of the castle, especially in the last handful of years here and all the changes that have been made?
It's the thing that I think I appreciate the most, especially since I got so heavily involved in engineering. My path in some ways is kind of paralleled Hammond's, and I don't even begin to put myself on the same plane with him. But here's a guy that created one of the first think tanks in the country, Hammond Research Inc., which was this whole end of the building. He had 3 or 4 employees that he kept for like 40 years, and that's very unusual in the engineering world. They put out a ton of patents, a very eclectic mix of everything, and did a lot of work for the military. And we have files upstairs that we're slowly going through to look at that. But when I had to go to the Panama Canal to work on that job for DOT, there was an old World War II transmitter site up at Summit, they call it, which is the highest point on the canal. And lo and behold, I'm going through the files, and Dr. Hammond was involved in the design of that World War II transmitter. I mean, it's just incredible the stuff they worked on. And as was referred to earlier, GPS as we know it today has its foundations in research work that was done here. So it's all of these things intertwined with each other. The dynamic accenter audio system that he had up above the eaves here, where the walls just meet the sloping ceiling. There are 8 speakers on that side and 7 on this side and a bunch of smaller ones behind that grillwork that are all part of the system he designed before stereo. This was to enhance the sound of the organ. And for folks who go into the inventions room, you'll see the control rack, full height rack, and one of his big amplifiers that he used for that. It's just amazing the amount of different stuff they worked on.
Unbelievable.
Just amazing.
Peter Kennett, we thank you so much for your time and
Thank
sharing
you
that
very
knowledge
much.
with us. It was awesome. I always want to learn more about the organ. Yeah, you can put that down right there.
We
That's
just
fine.
need to have more shows here.
Yeah, we got to come back sooner than later.
Plenty of material for
Yeah.
sure. Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, enjoy your day, and that's a wrap, Heather.
That's it.
What a
I know,
show.
And we still have so much more to learn.
Well, that's why, I mean, we keep saying it over and over again, but every time we come, we're learning something new. We can't wait to come back. We need to thank Hammond Castle for being such gracious hosts once again. Learned a ton today, really did.
Me too.
I'm not just saying that. That was some great conversations all around, and it's exciting programming coming up too.
So exciting. I will be there.
She's not gonna, you will be
I
there.
will be there.
For all
Yeah,
that.
I will.
All right, so we want to thank our guests once again, Linda Harvey, John Lyseth, Caleb McMurphy, Jim Craig, and Peter Kennett. We have to thank our crew, right? We have Mike Dennis on camera, our floor manager is Alana Horn, production manager Tyler Harinson.
Harinzen.
Harinzen,
Yeah.
right? Pretty good.
Thumbs up there.
You got to see this guy's name in the closing credits, it'll blow your head. Technical director Matt McMakin, digital director Matt Moore, operations coordinator Emily Games, and executive director Eric Archer. Our next show, Heather, is going to be 1 month from right now on Thursday, November 3rd at the Shaylin Lou Performance Center in
my
Rockport.
hometown.
Really looking forward to getting back there. And great job as always, Heather. That was fun.
You too. Nice to see you.
Yeah, so enjoy your October, folks. Learn more about Hammond Castle, hammondcastle.org, and learn about all the upcoming programs that they have for you. It's a full fall and winter they have planned. So thanks once again to the castle. Thank you, Heather, once again. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Cape Ann Today Live.